Suppose you are assigned to automate UI testing of the flight reservation application using QTP. The requirement states that whenever the flight reservation application is launched, the focus of the cursor should be on the agent name when edit box. This is a very typical test and can be automated using the GetROProperty. GetROProperty. It's an inbuilt method used to retrieve runtime value of an object's property. There are 4 steps involved in using GetROProperty. Step number 1. Record the object in object repository. Step number 2. Use object spy to determine the runtime object property to use. Step number 3. Use GetROProperty method to retrieve the identified runtime property and store the values in a variable. Step number 4. Use this value for further deductions. Let's look at these 4 steps one by one. Let's go ahead and execute step number 1. In our case, the object in question is the agent name when edit box. In QTP, click the record button. Select the flight reservation application and enter any garbage value in the agent name box. Stop recording. You can do away with the garbage steps. You can do away with the dummy operation used to record the agent name object. Step number 2 is to identify the object properties which could be used. In the object repository, if you look at the properties recorded for the agent name edit box, there is not much you can use. You can directly use the runtime property if you remember it offhand. Otherwise, you can use object spy. To use object spy in QTP, click object spy icon. The object spy dialog box opens. Click on the pointing button. The cursor changes to pointing hand. As you hover over different objects, the object is highlighted in your application and object spy shows the corresponding details. You can press the left control key to switch back to normal pointer, arrange the windows as required. As soon as you release the left control key, the cursor changes back to pointing hand. Select the agent name edit box. Object spy shows its object hierarchy. Various operations, methods with corresponding brief descriptions of the methods and the object properties. In our case, the property which could be used is focused, which, as the name suggests, checks the focus of the edit box. In your case, property identification may or may not be as simple as demonstrated here, and it will require certain experience and trial and error. Step number 2 is complete. Step number 3 is to use the GetROProperty method to retrieve the identified runtime property and store it in a variable. In QTP, succeeding a test object, press the dot button, select the GetROProperty method, enter the property name, store it in a variable say val. Step number 3 is complete. Step number 4 is to use this value for further deductions. So I can simply say if val is true, then reporter dot report event Okay, what this essentially means is if the focus is enabled, the if condition would be satisfied, and a reporter.report event will report a past status, else a failed status would be shown. Let's go ahead and run the test. Let's first change the focus to password field. In this case, the focus will be disabled and a failed status should be shown. Let's run the test. As you see here, a failed status is shown. Let's now focus on the agent name field and run the same test again. As you can see, a past status is shown. That's all to GetROProperty. Let's look into GetROProperties. Consider a web button with name equals to OK stored in the object repository. When the test is run, QTP creates a copy of this object called the test object and compares it with the runtime object. Using GetROProperty, you can retrieve the value of a property of a test object. Using setROProperty, you can change the property value of a test object. When the test is completed, this test object is discarded. When the test is rerun, a new copy of the test object is created with the original property values stored in the object repository. You can consider using GetROProperty and setROProperty when your test script has multiple lines of code, your environment is sporadic. For a note, there is no setROProperty.